Catholic TV and everywhere else on earth. The great Dr. Ray Guarendi will be our guest. We're going to talk about his new book about adoption. This hour, Rose Sweet. So just think about that. You start with Rose Sweet, you finish with Ray Guarendi. That is a pretty good Friday. Rose Sweet, thanks for being with us.
It's my pleasure. I can't wait. Dr. Ray is the best. I just had to get that out of the way.
Don't say that when you're here. Say that when you're on his show.
He hasn't had me on his show in forever.
So then he's not the best anymore.
Oh, yeah, that's
Move
right.
him to second best. Look at this, Rose. I forgot to button up my collar before we started the show. So I'll be buttoning while I'm talking. So then, we're going to talk a little bit with you. Well, first of all, Rose Sweet, you can find her at rosesweet.com, the author of a whole bunch of wonderful books. One of the great Catholic speakers of our time.
Thank you.
And I just was like bowled over the first time I heard you speak. You know, I've heard that I've said that to you many times.
There you go.
Oh,
yeah, thank you.
And also a great life coach. You do coaching for people.
I love life coaching. I really, it's how we love our faith. We love our Catholic faith. You get good apologetics from Catholic Answers. Then how do you go home and really incorporate that into your day-to-day and all your relationships? That's what I love to help people do.
It is beautiful. You should visit Rose at rosesweet.com. But today is a beautiful day, and I hope this is the last one of these that we will have under the current legal regime in the United States. I feel so hopeful. And I tried not to get my hopes up about the Roe v. Wade thing, but they are totally up now. And so I don't care. I'm going to be crushed if it doesn't come because I just feel my hopes are up. But you know what today is. What are we doing?
Today is we're celebrating the March for Life.
Yeah.
And all over the country, Washington, D.C., there are Catholics of all sorts there marching and protesting and praying and loving and counseling and doing all good things to help everybody respect life. And we focus mostly on, in most conversations, the poor innocent baby in the womb who is under the threat of abortion.
Yeah.
And that's where our topic came in today is Fulton Sheen, many years ago, kind of coined the term for us in modern day of spiritual adoption. And he encouraged us to all spiritually adopt a baby who is in danger of being aborted. And that means, we'll talk more about what that means, but especially to begin to pray for that baby and his or her mother.
If you'd like to talk with Rose about spiritual adoption, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Rose would appreciate it if you did. She tells me all the time, I would rather talk to the callers than talk to you. So 888-318-7884.
No, that's not exactly how I say it.
884. It sounds like that to me. I don't know. 888-318-7884. All right, tell us about this spiritual adoption thing.
Okay, so for today, I brought 4 little points that we can kind of focus on.
Okay.
And then I'm going to give 4 rules for spiritual, if you want to spiritually adopt somebody.
Okay.
I have 4 little rules. So how does spiritual adoption come about anyway? First of all, God is our Father. God's our Father. That He revealed Himself to us as that. And that means something. What do fathers do? How do they view their children? And in Ephesians, it says that we are predestined for adoption into God's family. And He wants us to be His. He wants us in that community of love. He wants forever.
Right.
So if we don't agree or we struggle with the whole thing that God really is a loving Father, we're not quite going to get the spiritual adoption.
Yeah, because right, I think people struggle. Probably you know this a lot from firsthand from the folks that you work with. But there's this woundedness around fathers in many, many ways. I think a lot of us who are fathers are aware of it. Like, am I doing the stuff that they'll be talking to Rose about in 15 years? And like, am I doing that stuff right now? But the fatherhood of God is a perfect fatherhood.
It is, and it's been under attack since the beginning because it is so beautiful and so powerful. The second point is that the Bible tells us this is nothing new. It's full of references to adoption, being adopted sons and daughters of God, the Father, the loving Father. St. Paul especially talks about it in Romans and Ephesians and where else? Galatians. So you can do a word search in Scripture about adoption. It's really, really beautiful. You know that the person is at one point outside of a family, outside of safety,
right,
security, love. And that's what happened to us in the garden. We kind of got kicked outside the family. Like,
Right.
my husband and I actually did have to kick out one of our boys and put his stuff on the sidewalk one day, and that's another story. But this is an invitation to come back into the family and receive all the benefits, all the graces, all the privileges, and carry the responsibilities of the family.
By the way, 888-318-7884. We're talking spiritual adoption on this day of the March for Life here in the United States. 888-318-7884. So identifying God as Father, the first thing to know about spiritual adoption. It's not some abstract thing. It's very concrete. The Father loves you and wants you adopted into his family.
That's right. So he's the one that initiates this whole adoption process. And we participate in it, and the Bible tells us about that. In fact, we know throughout, there's lots of stories of adoption. Moses was adopted. Joseph was adopted by Pharaoh.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus was adopted in a certain sense by St. Joseph. Esther was adopted by Mordecai. So we are a people who are meant to belong in family and be where it's safe and loving and protected. And we, for whatever reason, we find ourselves outside. We are all called to help bring people back into the family. Spiritual adoption.
Yeah, and there's a way in which, if you had to sum, what is Christianity about? What is the incarnation of God and Jesus Christ about? What are all these sacraments about? Sum it up in one thing. You can essentially sum it up to be made sons and daughters of the living God.
Yes, and that's my third point. Listen to this. The Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 456, says, why did the Word become flesh? Why did God take on flesh and come down? And they concisely sum it up in these 4 points. First, to reconcile us to the Father.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever displease your dad?
Never.
I know
never.
that was a stupid
My
question.
lucky
but
father to have me as a son.
Do you know anybody? Do you know anybody who displeased?
All of my brothers and sisters did.
Okay.
I never did, Rose. Please don't ask him about this when you
Would
see him.
somebody please spiritually adopt Cy because he's in need of major prayers? Okay, never mind. Okay, so the first reason that the Word became flesh was to reconcile us to the Father. Moms are really good at that.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Number 2, Jesus became flesh so that we would know the Father's love for us. And number 3, so that he could model the Father's love for us in the flesh. And then the fourth reason that Jesus became flesh, the Word became flesh, was so that we could actually be partakers in God's divine nature.
St. Peter, second letter of St. Peter, first chapter.
What this says is not only are we in the family, we get to share in his power, his glory, his suffering. We get to share in everything. And I was thinking kind of humorously, the first time I was aware that I had authority under my mother and father is when my mom wrote me a note to take to the grocery store to buy her cigarettes. Back in the in the 50s and 60s, right?
Yeah.
Dear Eddie, he was the pharmacist, give my daughter a pack of cigarettes and I'll pay you later. And I marched down with my letter of authority because I belonged to my family and I was sharing in my mother's adulthood in a certain sense. She brought me into that and let me share in it. Now, I wasn't my mother. I didn't have the full authority.
No, but you were granted some of that authority
I was granted some of it.
to buy Lucky Strikes.
Pell Mell, I think it was.
Oh.
So I love that. Okay, so God is our Father. The Bible affirms this and tells us of many, many stories of adoption, spiritual and physical. And we know why Jesus came, so that we could be reconciled to the Father and share in his, not just share in his divine nature, but specifically in his fatherhood, in his parenthood. We all who are parents are sharing in God's original parenthood. And the fourth point is that means because he adopted us, we can adopt others. There it is. There's the 4 points.
That last one you're going to have to unpack for us a little bit because we're talking spiritual adoption. Rose Sweet is our guest. Today is the March for Life. Second hour, Dr. Ray Guarendi will be here to talk with us about adoption in the more natural sense, not the supernatural sense, but in the more natural sense, the sense of adopting children, as he and his wife have done many times. Your calls are welcome for Rose this hour, 888-318-7884. I have to take the first break. We'll do that and come back, and I do want you to flesh out that fourth point a bit. I'm very curious.
Will.
Oh, you will? Okay. All right, right back with Rose Sweet.
Catch Catholic Answers live anytime at Catholic.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
Each week on The World Over, Raymond Arroyo challenges listeners and viewers with important political and cultural reporting and analysis of a wide variety of topics of interest to Catholics and people of faith. And you can get news from the world over in your inbox every week. It's easy. Visit EWTN.com and click subscribe. EWTN, the Global Catholic Network.
Welcome back. Catholic Answers Live. I'm Cy Kellett, your host, in the midst of an amazing Friday lineup. Rose Sweet here. First hour, second hour, Dr. Ray Guarendi. Does that mean you're opening for him, or does that mean that he's closing for you?
I know he's going to try to slam me in the next hour, but you know what? I'm going to take the high path.
He always says such nice things about you.
He does not.
I don't.
Does he?
My experience has been he's extremely
complimentary?
Complimentary of you. That's the word, yeah. It seems like such a basic word. Why could I not come up with the word?
Because it's
You're
a lie.
flustering me, Rose. You're flustering me. Yes, I've never heard him say it. Like, you say a lot of mean things about him, but he never
Because
says
he
that.
says mean things to me in private.
Does he?
But
Yeah.
on
He's
the
an
radio.
awful person.
No,
An
I know.
awful person.
No,
But
I
you
love
know
him.
he's kidding, right?
No, I love him. I love him to death.
It's
He's
pretty
hilarious.
hard not to love him.
Yeah.
The number's 888-318-7884. We're talking about spiritual adoption. We're going to come to the phones in just a quick second, but I want Rose to finish up your fourth idea there about spiritual adoption.
Well, we know a lot about spiritual adoption by just looking at physical adoption. When I was a little girl, my mom and dad had 8 children. Good Catholic family. Dad made a lot of money. He was a real estate developer in Sacramento. And I remember being the oldest, I was privy to some of their conversations around the dinner table. And I remember them saying that God had blessed them and they had plenty of room for somebody else around the table. There was still room around our dining table. My dad had taken an old door and taken the handle out and put tile on it and made a big long, as long as a door is, a table for all of his little 8 kids. And they went down to the Sacramento Adoption Agency and adopted our brother. I got a new brother.
Wow. Can I just tell you something? My parents have 7 kids.
Yeah.
My dad did the same darn thing with the door. He made a table out of. Is this
Really?
like an old Catholic father
Yes.
trick? Like, I can't afford a table. We got
Really?
a door around here we're not using.
Isn't
Yeah.
that funny? And then
Yeah.
did you have tile on it?
No, it
Oh.
didn't have tile. No, it was
He sanded it down and whatever.
whatever. I don't know
Anyway,
what he
we're
did to
off-
it.
But you know what? Okay.
It's not a woodworking show, Rose.
I know, but
Move
listen
on.
to this. Listen to this.
Yeah.
Shut up. Okay.
Oh,
Listen.
you can't say that on
Yes, I
EWTN.
can. Yes, I
This
can.
is EWTN.
I,
All right,
I
go
know.
ahead.
I can go to confession later.
Okay.
Okay. That's part of our Father's provision.
Yeah.
Getting that table and finding a way to make room for all the children.
Right.
It really is. We're laughing about it, but that's what fathers, that's what mothers, that's what parents do. They provide, they protect, they feed, they counsel. Anyway, we had a new brother, and he wasn't treated any differently than the rest of us. Mm-hmm. We weren't allowed to say, this is our adopted brother. We said,
Yeah.
this is our brother, David. And he was entitled to all the privileges, even legally, with our last name,
Yeah.
the father's name.
Yes.
We now had he had access to all the rights and privileges that any one of us had. And he also carried the burden of the responsibilities. He had to do chores. He had to obey the rules. He had to be kind and courteous. He had to go to school, make his bed.
What an image of the Christian life, though.
It really is.
All the privileges of being a full family member the moment you're in.
Right.
And then all the responsibilities that come with that as well.
Right. And this is what we're talking about. I'm going to talk about the 4 rules then. If you want to spiritually adopt somebody or understand this, you got to understand how to do it right. It's not just saying, okay, I picked this person, I'm going to say, Our Father, Hail Mary, glory be every day for them, amen. I mean, that's a good start,
Yeah.
but there is a lot more to it.
Okay. All right.
So are we ready to go there?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
I mean, you're coming right up against my fear of commitment, but yes. Go ahead.
Oh, somebody needs to spiritually, no, you need a coach. That's what you need. No, I'm teasing. So when I got older and I was a single woman who was making good money, I was in the real estate business. I bought myself a house. I was waiting for somebody to propose to me and they weren't coming along.
Mm-hmm.
And I had that same gift in me that my mom and dad had passed on. I had money, I had a dining table, I had a roof, and I had love in my heart. So I went down to my local county and I adopted a little girl who nobody else wanted. As a single person, that was very rare back in the day. But it was, and this is the word, it's an act of generosity. It's an opening of the heart and the mind and maybe even the pocketbook to bring somebody in to receive all the benefits of love that are appropriate to that relationship. So it's a way to go. If anybody out there feels called by this conversation to explore or investigate, open your heart and see where God takes you with this.
Amen to that. Amen to that. I've been on the other side of it for, working with children, waiting for someone to adopt them for years and years. And it's when you see it from that side, you get a sense of you can't even believe the good that you're doing for this child. Like a good that's beyond anything else the child is even dreaming of is to go home.
Well, and it doesn't mean that it's all going to be a bed of roses, as with any naturally born child.
It's not all just a rom-com movie. Like
No. You will need to draw on the graces of the sacraments and your baptism and the teachings of the church. Parenting is hard, you know that.
Yeah.
But it's also very rewarding and richly participatory in the divine nature of God.
Yeah, right.
That's what it's all about.
Can I ask you something? I'm just going to spring this on you. Did you hear what the Pope said the other day about dogs?
Yes.
I kind of thought he was right on about us.
I thought he was right on, too, that they're not to be a substitute for children.
No, and I think we're afraid of children. Or something. The younger generation is afraid of everything, and God bless them. I don't blame them for it. It's our fault that they have these terrors of marriage and family and children, but stop being afraid. Like it's...
Well, and it's not just afraid, it's lazy. And let's have a caveat here. There are people who legitimately love pets, and pets are a blessing to them, and they have their pets appropriately. But there are people who don't want to put forth the effort that a real human relationship requires. Because when you come home, the dog runs to the door, or whatever,
Right.
They unconditionally love you. Do your children always unconditionally love you, or your spouse?
I can't even get them to conditionally love me sometimes.
I know, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
It's easier to pick up a little poo and fill the dog dish and have that dog. And I love animals, but yes, it can creep into the disorder, and I think that's what our Holy Father was addressing.
So open the heart to children. And I feel like we had to open the heart to children to receive children the natural way, and open the heart to receive the children who may be in need of adoption.
Exactly.
And shower all that love that you're showering on Fido on a human being who has an eternal soul.
Exactly. And it doesn't even need to be a child.
Yeah.
There are a lot of young adults or even older people who are lonely and without family.
Yes.
And outside
Rose,
family.
Right.
People who are in prison.
Yeah.
People who are suffering from mental illness. They're just this solitude and this loneliness that we can help with our spiritual adoption. It's
I didn't even think about it. I had this friend years ago who started being a pen pal to a guy on death row here in California. And the guy, it's not like one of those, he was unjustly, no, he deserved to be on death row. But
Right.
this was a very Christian act of just accompanying this guy. And like in California, death row means you're just in a different part of the prison. They don't actually put anybody to death, but it's an awful thing. But that's a kind of adoption, isn't it? That this person and didn't take the commitment lightly. It's not like one letter or something. This was a lifetime commitment to walk with this person.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up that word commitment, because that is what spiritual adoption really does require. It's not just a temporary thing. We don't just temporarily have our kids in our house and go, oh, well, you're 12 and I don't like the way you make your bed, you're out. It's a long-term commitment.
I don't like the way you make your bed. You're out. What kind of parenting?
I don't know. Not me, but maybe somebody out there. Sigh.
Yeah.
Be careful.
Yeah, that's
okay.
well,
okay.
yeah, I know. Right.
Okay, so
Somebody probably has done that. You're right. There's probably some. Right. I'm sorry to hear that. Go on, Rose.
Okay.
I'll stop talking now.
No, don't ever stop talking. By the way, people email me all the time and they go, we love when you're on the show because we love Cy. I get people always tell me, please, if you love Cy, he's not paying me. No, keep your money. Keep your money. Send him an email. Let him know.
I need it so bad.
No, I'm serious.
I can't even get my children to love me.
No, you know what?
Yeah,
When
go ahead,
when
Russ.
we do love an actor, an actress, or an author, a speaker, a teacher, a radio host,
Yeah.
let them know.
But George Clooney never writes me back.
Well,
He never.
I told you need a coach.
Right. All right.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Let's go into the 4 rules of spiritual adoption.
All right. Let's do it.
Number 1, God is the ultimate father, and you have to believe he's in charge.
Amen. All right.
If you spiritually adopt somebody, it is not your complete and sole responsibility to save that person, to get that person to
right.
hell.
Right.
You are.
to hell, to heaven. You mean out of
See, you have me
Good
flustered
Lord,
now
Rose.
too.
Good
Okay,
Lord.
focus, Rose.
Yeah.
Okay, God, we're participating in God's fatherhood in spiritual adoption. We're not carrying the big giant load. It's, we're sharing in it. And that's a consolation because we don't have the burden of saving people. That's the Holy Spirit's job. So remember, if you're going to spiritually adopt somebody, remember, you're not now stepping into the position where you have to save their soul. You can
Okay.
never save their soul.
Right.
That's God's job.
Yeah. All right.
And if you falter or you fail and you're weak or you forget, it is the Father who will come behind you and beside you and do what is necessary for that person. Okay, rule number 2. Know the difference between love and attachment.
Okay.
Can you tell me the difference between love and
I
attachment?
actually don't think I mean, I suppose I could probably
do
guess,
know.
but I guess it would be that love is an act of will for the good of the other person, and attachment is sort of an emotional level thing. That's the way I would guess. But
Okay,
I don't-
you're right on.
What?
Yes,
Oh my gosh, I am good at this, Rose.
you are
You're
very
right.
good. You're very good. Okay, so no, there's nothing wrong with attachment in a general sense, but we in the Catholic Church call inordinate attachment when we're hanging on too tight. In other words,
Yeah.
I got to pray more. I got to offer more masses. I got to go meet that person. They're living in sin. I'm their spiritual mother, father.
Yeah.
And now we're attached to the outcome
Right.
too much. And we still have love, but it's kind of poisoned with attachment and ego and fear and anxiety and over responsibility. So all of us parents go through that. So know the difference between love and attachment. Love is just what you said, willing, not just willing their very best, but being willing to do or not do whatever it's in your possibility
Yeah.
to make that happen.
Right.
So,
Okay.
okay. Number 3, parent them spiritually as good, healthy parents, as God parents.
Okay.
How does God parent? Describe to me how God the Father has parented his people, his children.
Well, he taught them and walked among them and then gave his life for them.
Yes. Did he do anything
But I'm saying
else?
them like it's not me, but
Well, no, that's okay.
Yeah, he
What
did-
else did he do? Did he ever get mad at him?
Well, yes, yeah.
And did he ever withhold his favor from his people?
Oh, yeah, that exile in Babylon thing wasn't good.
400 years,
Was that what it was? 400 years?
I think.
All right.
Ask the apologists. They
No, see, you and I are not going to sit here and argue about Bible passages. All right, you got to wait to give us more.
Okay.
All right.
To be continued.
Rose Sweet is here. That's almost always good news. Sometimes I owe her money, then it's not that good of news. But right now, I don't owe her anything. So why are you looking at me like that, Rose? You know I'm playing around.
Almost good news.
888-318-7884. We continue with our conversation about spiritual adoption. And I am going to get to calls when we come back.
Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com. Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Monday on More to Life, Imposter Syndrome.
Do you feel like you're not up to the challenges in your life? We'll help you discover your strengths.
That's Monday on More to Life. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. Rose Sweet is here. It's always a good thing. Always, every time. I've never once had that not be a good thing to have Rose around. 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. We're talking about spiritual adoption. For one thing, any kind of culture of life, if we really believe in a culture of life, is going to be a culture that includes physical adoption and spiritual adoption.
Exactly.
We're going to have to care for one another, in other words. Like you can't have a culture of life that's just like, well, we got abortion outlawed, therefore that's not a culture of life yet. That's just the beginning. A real culture of life is where we welcome one another and care for one another and adopt one another's needs as our own needs.
And as you said earlier, in a committed and a consistent way. And that's the difference between praying for somebody for a special occasion or including them in your rosary versus really spiritually adopting them. It's a committed and consistent connection,
right,
where you bring them into your prayers and I'll talk about coming up right now, other ways that you can do that.
All right. Do you want to do that or, okay.
So let's talk about the 4 rules again. The first one is just remember who's in charge. Remember that God is the ultimate Father. He's in control. And he's smarter, he's more powerful. Mm-hmm. You're just called in to participate in his parenthood with him. Number 2, know the difference between love and attachment. Affection and love are not always the same. Attachment is usually about the outcome. I got to pray harder, I got to pray more. And sometimes that's true. But the anxiety and fear that can creep in means you've taken on too much of the responsibility.
Okay, yeah.
Number 3, parent as God parents. And we can read in Scripture how God parents. He never withholds his love, but when necessary, he withholds his favor.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about my son, whose name I will not name on the radio, but he had a hard time being launched. He didn't want to leave the nest, and he wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing. So we counseled him, comforted him, talked to him, equipped him, yelled at him, blah, blah, blah. And finally we had to say, okay, if you don't go do what you're supposed to do, we're going to pack all your stuff and put it on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell people that we really did this, they are shocked. They don't think that's Christian or loving. And I'm like, but that's what God did and still does to us.
It's like the Garden of Eden.
You're right, to change
You're on
our
your own.
hearts, to change the way we think. So the day came, and I remember I was a little tougher than my husband, and but we were on the same page, and we put his stuff on the sidewalk, and he was furious. He felt horrible, and we told him, we're not withholding our love, but we're withholding our favor, because you got a job to do. Within 2 to 3 weeks, he had a place to live, he had a job, and ever since he's been on his own and doing a great job.
Yeah.
And if we would have coddled him year after year and kept talking to him and praying, and we had to put our love into action.
Right.
And that's what God does. So here's what I love. The spiritual works of mercy are the ways we can parent like God. Do you remember what they are? Because I did put them down on my little piece of paper.
The spiritual works of mercy?
Yeah, not the corporal.
I know the corporal ones are easier for me. All right, spiritual works of mercy. Edgar, I'm looking right at you. You're supposed to be saying them to me so I can
Do you
pretend
want
like
a
I know
hint?
them. No, yeah, go ahead.
When you teach somebody, you are
Teaching them, helping them learn things.
Instruct.
This is going to be a terrible
Okay,
quiz show.
okay.
You better just say them.
Instruct the ignorant.
Instructing the ignorant. That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
Instruct the ignorant. So in other words, the person that you've spiritually adopted, maybe they need to know a little bit more about their faith or about God or about living a good Christian life. You might have to teach them a little bit, right? Counsel the doubtful.
Mm-hmm.
Comfort the afflicted.
Comfort the afflicted.
Right?
Yep.
Admonish the sinner.
the sinner.
Ooh, bing, 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 bing. Wait a minute. Most people put that at the top of the list. Yes, I need to admonish the sinner.
I know. Some people just love admonishing the sinner.
No.
And
You don't do that until you've listened to them, you've taught them, you've listened again, you've counseled them, you've comforted them. Then the other ones are bear wrongs patiently.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't every parent do that? They do these.
Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah.
Forgive easily and pray for the living and the dead. And I think that means the living and the spiritually dead. So even if somebody is you've adopted somebody spiritually, they're in a life of sin, you don't know how they're ever going to come back, you do not stop praying for them. You never despair of God's mercy and of hope. So,
All right, Rose, now you ready to go to calls?
Oh yeah, calls.
Every single
I'm-
person hung up on us while we were talking. We just talked too long, Rose. They always,
I'm sorry, but
No.
I just love this stuff. It's
Me
good,
too.
isn't it?
It's just you and me.
Okay, maybe
It's like-
Dr. Ray's going to have the better show.
No, he's not.
I knew it.
888-318-7884. We just wore them out, Rose. 888-318-7884. We're talking about spiritual adoption. 888-318-7884. I hadn't thought about adopting the child and maybe the mother of the child when a child is when there's some risk of abortion is how you started. That was Fulton Sheen's idea. But you mentioned older folks, and I feel like there are many older folks who need someone to adopt them.
There are lots of them, and I work with a lot of really tender-hearted women who are so good with the aged.
Mm-hmm.
That's a unique gift, and that's a unique share in God's parenting, His parenthood, and His love. That they have such a tender heart for old people. They're good with kids too, but really they go out to the aging. And so, I think a lot of your listeners might be in that position too.
Well, how much of this involves that? Because there's certain people, like I always say this to Carlo, he's really good with middle school kids. I'm terrified of middle school. I mean, I'm not terrified of them, but I realize that the connection doesn't always get made clearly between me and a group of middle age. And he can do that. There's people who are fantastic at preschool. There's people who are so. In considering this kind of spiritual adoption of others, I suppose you should consider your own gifts and talents.
Exactly. Anybody can pray for anybody, but once you start getting physically, emotionally, financially, or otherwise involved, you want to find, is this my strength? Is this where I really shine? And has God equipped me for this? God can equip everybody, but it is a lot easier and very joyful when you're working in your strengths.
888-318-7884 is the number. Rose Sweet is our guest. We're talking about spiritual adoption, a society that involves more adoption. I'd posit would be a much more pro-life society, and that's what we're talking about today on this day of the March for Life. You're welcome to call with your questions about spiritual adoption. Maybe this is something you think, I'm a person who's very good at praying. I do have that charism, and I could pray for the unborn. Maybe you're someone who's very, very good at accompanying people who are in their senior years or in their younger years, and you'd like to think about making that kind of spiritual adoption, making someone precious to you so that they know that they are precious to the Lord. 888-318-7884.
I just remembered in grade school, and I think you probably did this too, that we would adopt a little baby from Africa, and that we got their picture, and they
had to fill
name.
that little milk carton with coins.
No, we were spiritually adopting children. We were children spiritually adopting children. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was always very intense when the missionaries would come and speak to us because they would tell you about these situations where you're like, I had no idea the world was like that, but there was something you could do about it because you have the Catholic Church. Like, you're not just like, I don't just live, 11,000 miles away from a kid who's living like that. I've got I can fill this little milk carton that they gave me with coins over the next 40 days. That's how we used to do it. And then I can give it to this missionary, and it's going to go to this kid. And
the missionary who's participating in the parenthood too is like the big happy family, and they're making it happen. We are family. That should be our theme song. Family.
888-318-7884. Okay, so now the calls are starting to come back in, so we'll take a quick break. We'll be right back with more talking spiritual adoption with Rose Sweet.
This is Archbishop Paul Coakley, the Archdiocese of Oklahoma City, and you're listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
One of the reasons we should go to Mass is because, if you look in the Catechism, you will see the fruits of Holy Communion. And these are remarkable things that we can receive at every Mass that we attend. We encounter the risen Lord, and He shares something of His divine life and love with us.
The Holy Sacrifice of the Mass, live from the EWTN Chapel, every morning, 8 Eastern, on EWTN Radio and Television.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. Yes, Rose, I was pounding on the desk.
But
that's
the
what I do
listeners hear that.
No, it's during the break. I can drum on the desk during the break.
Oh, okay.
Rose, I do this show every day without you. You don't have to.
I feel like I should spiritually adopt you.
I think you probably should.
Okay.
All right, we got a bunch of calls now, so we're gonna I'm gonna stop all the chatting with you.
Okay.
Because it's one of my favorite things to do. Is go to the calls.
Too.
We'll go to Grant in Houston, Texas, listening on 1430 AM Guadalupe Radio. Grant, we're so happy to have you. Please go ahead with your question for Rose Sweet.
Hi, I was wondering if there was some emasculation occurring in you kicking your son to the curb, or leading the charge with you kicking your son to the curb. You used the phrase that you were tougher than your husband in that moment, and I raise the question because it harkens some memories for me. I'm 29 on my own. My parents divorced. My mom was tougher than my dad. And I have this, and it arouses anger when I hear stories like that, because I think my mom emasculated me in ways, and it causes me despair of ever being a good father and a husband who can lead the family well.
Grant, I am so glad that you called. And, let me clarify. Yes, there are women who will emasculate. They will shove their spouse out of the way and take charge, and they do a lot of damage. It's not loving at all. My husband and I were on the same page after much talking and praying back and forth, and we were in agreement, except I have a natural temperament that once we make up our mind, I go and get the job done, like cleaning the kitchen. And he'll wait a little bit. That's all I meant by that. We were very much together. Our son was almost 18, and he was very aware of the fact that we loved him. We wanted the best for him. We had spent hours with him, building him up, helping him find his own unique gifts and talents. We helped him learn budgets and how to understand to be on his own. We brought some of his friends into the house to sit around and talk about how maybe they could, all rent a house together. So we made it a warm and loving environment for him to go out. But he was terrified, and we knew that. And we decided that in love, and this is the tough thing to say without yelling or screaming or shaming, no emasculation. You got to find your way, son, and we're here. You come over for dinner. You can watch TV with us, but you got to go find your own way. And by doing that for that child at that time in that way, it was very appropriate and very fruitful. But Grant, please let me affirm that I have seen what you described about your mom and your dad, and it's deeply painful. Please don't despair of being a good dad. The fact that you observed that and saw that as wrong and disordered means that you have a heart and a mind that knows what is right. So keep on the same path. Keep going. Get help if you need it. I'm very thankful for your call.
Thank you. Thank you, Rose.
Thanks, Grant. Thank you very much for the call. The number is 888-318-7884. We'll go now to Mary in Illinois, listening on 92.7 FM. Mary, we're so happy to have you. Go ahead with your question for Rose Sweet.
Thank you. Just got a question. I've got a daughter that lives in another state and a granddaughter. My daughter states that they're atheists. They're very, very, very liberal, believe in abortion. But my granddaughter is going to be 22, no job, no driver's license, can't pass a drug test because she smokes pot every day for stress. How do I guess the word is spiritually adopt them and help them? My daughter has asked me to pray for them before, but I just saw them not 2 months ago, and I just literally wanted to cringe because I really wanted to take hold of my granddaughter and just say, "You need to wake up, get on with your life, instead of just sitting around." What do I do?
Well, Mary, that's tough. I think millions of parents out there are feeling similar situations with a lot of people in their family. First of all, you got to understand where you can move in and maybe say something or not. And maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know. But, pray for that. I would put some structure around your prayer life for both of them. Do something daily. Pick some prayers that you like. And here's what I love. There are people that I have spiritually adopted. I'm thinking of one right now. My heart just goes out to him. And I pray prayers of exorcism for him. The church has beautiful prayers that really get to the root of strongholds that are on people's minds and hearts that keep them recycling this bondage to sin. And keep praying, but consider looking at some of the prayers of exorcism that we have. You can Google them and find a lot on the internet. And I'm sure Catholic Answers here on your website has lots of stuff. I would also, and I'm going to throw this out to everybody. With a lot of my coaching clients, when they are afraid to approach somebody, they'd like to just say what they want to say, but it would cause World War III or it would ruin the relationship, I say, write it down in a letter and work on it and get it to where you were sitting in front of that person and your words are now perfect. You're sharing your heart and your hopes for them and your fears. Just keep working on that letter. That's therapeutic for you. Offer that to the Lord in your prayer time. And then pray about one day being able to sit down and read that letter to the person, folding it and handing it to them. I've done this in my own life. I have some relatives who went outside the church, and I couldn't get their ears, so I wrote them letters. And I sat on those letters for a long time, Si, because I didn't want to be filled with ego and pride and over-responsibility. But I prayed about it, and I would get a clear path to say, just send the letter and fear not. And they always were fruitful. Always were fruitful. So those are some of the ideas, Mary. Yes, you adopt that daughter and granddaughter today.
Okay, I will.
God bless you, Mary. Thank you very much for that call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Let's go to Columbus, Ohio. Sue in Columbus, Ohio, listening on 820 AM. Sue, go ahead with your question for Rose.
Well, it's not really a question per se, but I just wanted to say I like what I'm hearing. And I also just wanted to express that over the years as a Christian, I've seen maybe where the body of Christ can grow in this, where you're adopting not just children or seniors, but those middle of the age, the adults, single adults that really are kind of trying to do life alone.
Yeah.
And, I really like the whole concept of really that commitment there, that you're going to walk with them. And I think, and just discipleship, like we see in the Bible. So, anyway, I just wanted to add that to the mix conversation.
I really appreciate it, Sue.
Yeah, Sue, that's beautiful. Thank you. And I'm going to expand on what you shared, is that, and here's what they say about when you're looking for big donations from people. The people will give their money in a cause that's dear to their heart. They will open up and be most generous in a cause that's dear to their heart. So, Sue, you mentioned the middle-aged people. Okay, and this came to me because of my work. What about spiritually adopting a husband who is not fully invested in his marriage and his wife and children are suffering? You don't even have to know that person, but just ask the Lord to pick that person and you adopt him. You adopt the wife who is having trouble in her marriage, entertaining thoughts of infidelity or whatever, but she's struggling. We don't have to know the people that we're spiritually adopting. It helps sometimes emotionally when we do, but this is something we can pray about. But what's near and dear to your heart, and then figure out who those people are that you could spiritually adopt.
Okay, Sue?
Yeah.
I really appreciated the way you phrased that these are areas in where the body of Christ has to grow, because it does seem that we have all these problems of in who's left wing and who's right wing and who's this and that in the Catholic Church, but there are some basic acts of charity that we're not doing as a general matter of course as a Catholic community in many places. And among these basic acts of charity are having people into our home and caring for them who are lonely or like you said, are attempting to do life alone, which is a terrible, sad mistake. But I really appreciate the way you phrased it, that we need to grow in those areas, Sue.
Sure. Plenty of room to grow. I think we think about young adults, okay, 20s and 30s. And then after that, whoop, you dropped off the radar.
Exactly.
Yes, right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yep.
You nailed it.
Sue, I'm going to keep going to get everybody on with Rose, but thank you for the call.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Bonnie in St. Louis, listening on 96.7 FM Covenant Radio. Bonnie, glad to have you. Go ahead with your question for Rose.
Hi. My question was, do you make sure that people are aware to be in a state of grace when they, you mentioned exorcism prayers? Because I know that there could be retaliation.
I see what you're saying. Demonic retaliation.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. This is an area that is delicate, and we don't want to rush in without knowledge and understanding and think that we're going to, fight the devil. We're not. But exorcism, and we could bring it back down to this, I heard once, that saying blessing yourself in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit is in itself an exorcism prayer. The Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, is a prayer of exorcism. In other words, recognizing that there's not just an emotional problem with the person that you're praying for, but there may be some demonic influence there, and that you are asking our Lord in His power and His wisdom to address it all. And you know what? He already knows. He knows it. But what you're doing is entering into and participating in his power in that regard. And yes, thank you for that.
Bonnie, I want to say thank you too, because of course the lines are all full now that we're near the end. So I'm going to try to keep moving and get everybody on with Rose. Tim in Toledo, Ohio, listening on Annunciation Radio. Glad to have you, Tim. Go ahead with your question for Rose.
Hi there. Thanks for having me. I was wondering about the specific context of when you're trying to pray for and adopt and encourage your siblings to kind of come back to the church. In my case, my parents have both died, and every time I try to, encourage that, I get kind of, well, who are you to tell me what to do? So I'm wondering if you have any advice about addressing this sort of the sibling issue, especially if you're the oldest one.
Tim, I am the oldest, and I don't just understand. I've lived through it. So yes, I've been slapped down and told to stick my nose out of it, and that the Catholic Church is the whore of Babylon, and I'm going to hell. But I had to learn. It's a process. You move in, you get slapped or poked or whatever, and you pull back and lick your wounds, and then you go right back to our Lord, our Father, and go, okay, Father, where can I be? Where should I be in this? So you don't give up. You keep praying. You pray by name, but sometimes you ask God's wisdom and grace to see when you can move in and when you have to move out. Sometimes you will be outside of influencing them in conversation or any other way for 20, 30, 40 years, and maybe a whole lifetime. That's a cross, again, that we participate in the sufferings of God, of Jesus. So, yes, adopt your own siblings, but that means, first and foremost, every single day praying for them by name. Does that help?
Thanks, that's great. I think I do need to structure it more.
Yes, it's helped me. It's helped me.
Yeah, thanks.
Good.
Thanks, Tim. 888-318-7884, the number. Coming up next hour, Dr. Ray Guarendi will be here, and we're going to talk about the more traditional sense of the word adoption. That is, adopting children who are in need of a family. Is it for you? Should you? Could you? What will happen if you do? Dr. Ray knows. He's adopted quite a few children himself, and he's worked as a long time as a therapist. Your calls welcome next hour on about adoption. And maybe you've been thinking about it. Maybe this hour has made you think about maybe our family could make room for one more or two more. Give us a call next hour and talk with Dr. Ray about it. 888-318-7884. If you would like to know more about Rose, get in touch with Rose, see what else she's up to. RoseSuite.com is the place to go, RoseSuite.com. Will you give us the four that you started with, the 4 rules again of spiritual adoption?
The 4 rules? Mm-hmm. Yes. Remember that God is in control. He's the ultimate Father. He's got this. You do not have to save anybody. That's His work. You just participate in it. Number 2, know the difference between love and attachment. And love is willing the good of the other, and an inordinate attachment is being a little too worried and concerned and maybe even obsessed about the outcome of your prayers. Parent your spiritual adoptees as God parents. And the way He parents, you can read in Scripture and also follow the spiritual works of mercy. And number 4, I didn't get to this, enlist the help of others. Call the saints, call the angels, call our Blessed Mother. Call Catholic Answers.
We'll help. We'll pray.
Yeah.
We pray every morning. We'll
exactly.
Pray for them. And evening, too, but I can't go to the evening prayers because I'm here with you, Rose.
I love it. Thank you, Cy.
We'll see you. We'll be right back with Dr. Ray Guarendi. Rose Sweet, thank you. It is always a great delight to get to be with you.
I love being here. Thanks, Cy.
All right. We'll take a quick break. Right back with Dr. Ray Guarendi on adoption. Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I told you it was going to be a good show today. Again, thanks to Rose Sweet for that first hour. And this hour, Dr. Ray Guarendi, as promised. You know him from his show on the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network, and from his speaking career, where he's just a super dynamic speaker, and his writing career, writes all these books. And maybe you know him because you've sat in an office with him as he was your therapist. I don't know. But he's got a new book called Adoption. Should you? Could you? And then what? Straight answers from a psychologist and adoptive father of 10. Dr. Ray Guarendi, thank you for being with us.
Si, I really appreciate that you brought Rose in as my lead-in act to get the Frisbees and the beach balls going. If she's listening, I just want to thank her for that.
Yeah. I was asking her if she thought of herself as your opening act or you as her closing act. And I think I knew she didn't say out but I could tell by the look on her face how she thought about it.
Well, given Rose's advancing years, the fact that she made it through a whole hour, I was really impressed.
Her advancing years, really. She told me that you are mean to her. And I said, he says so many nice things about you when you're not around. She said, no, he's mean to me. And I didn't believe her, and now I do believe her. Adoption, should you, could you, and then what?
Yeah.
So it's the adoptive father of 10, what's the answer? Like, should you, could you, or what will happen if you do?
Parents will say to me, I don't know if God is calling me to adopt. I want to, but you know, maybe that isn't my calling. And I will say, well, if you want to, and you're wondering what he thinks, he wrote it down. The Epistle of St. James. This is faith that is pure and undefiled before the Lord, that we take care of the widows and the orphans in their distress. Or Jesus said, whoever welcomes a little one in my name welcomes me. So he wrote it down. If you're wondering if you have the hankering and the calling, you don't have to be an adoptive parent to be a Christian, obviously. And you don't even have to be a heroic parent to be a Christian. But if you're moved that way, then it's best we get you over some of your nervousness and your anxieties.
What do you think is it that makes people nervous? I mean, is it that maybe the child is damaged, or maybe I'm not good enough for the child, or what makes people resist adopting?
Those are the two big umbrellas.
Yeah, they are.
One of the adoption professionals I talked with said, it's the fear factor.
Uh-huh.
Will I love this child as I should? If I have biological children already, will I have the same attachment to this child as I do to my biological children? I can't even imagine me loving a child as much as I love my bio son. Will grandma accept this? I mean, this child's a different race than I am. Yeah. Okay, what if I really struggle to keep the cultural issues in balance? And money-wise, what about money-wise? You know, I've heard that it costs $52,000. My friend spent $52,000 when they went overseas. Yeah, that's true. It can vary from 0 to tens of thousands, depending upon whether you go through a private agency, whether you go overseas, whether you adopt from a public agency. You adopt from public, it's 0. Okay?
Yeah.
So that's a factor. Another one is, what if this child is difficult? You know, this child has been drug and alcohol exposed in the womb.
Yeah.
And there was early neglect. And Children's Services finally placed the child in foster care after 1.5 years, which was 2 of our children, by the way. What about delays? What about some kind of sluggishness in forming a conscience? Will I be able to deal with that? And I tell parents, you're making a commitment here. Now, the feelings may not always be warm. The commitment to the child, giving them a home and saying, I want to give you stability for the years that you're with me. And then, as I have with my own children, what you do with that stability after that, I will not allow to disrupt my peace.
888-318-7884. You're welcome to call and talk with Dr. Ray Guarendi. The doctor is in, so to speak, but in to talk about adoption today. 888-318-7884. Did you have these fears before you adopted?
Here's what happened. I came home from Cleveland Clinic. I told my wife, they said, if we can have a child, we can conceive a child, go on the TV talk show circuit, because it'll be a miracle.
Oh, okay.
So we said, and you know what it was, Cy? It was a congenital condition called Sertoli-only cell syndrome. Now, my grandmother was excited that it was Italian. She felt good about that, okay?
Yes, right. Oh, Sertoli, yes.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Good
It's a
job,
guy.
Ray.
Everybody knows it. Yeah. So my mother, apparently, this was in the womb. It happened in the womb. So I found my mother, and I threatened to sue her.
Yeah.
But the attorney told me that the statute of limitations had probably worn out. So I gave my mother a warning. This better not ever happen again.
I'm glad you're able to talk with her that way.
We figured, okay, one child, maybe two. You know, that's at the outside. Now, my wife always wanted 5 or 6 kids. It sure looks like that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So we said, okay, maybe the good Lord will give us 1, maybe 2. But then we discovered a little secret of adoption. And I say this to the parents listening. It's not quite as true now as it was then, but it still is. If you don't care about the race, if you don't necessarily care about an infant, you'd like an infant, if you're willing to adopt a 2 or 3 or 4 or 5-year-old, if you are willing to take in what would be called a special needs child. Now, special needs side is a very broad category.
Okay, yeah.
8 of my kids are special needs, and you know why?
Why?
3 are black, 2 are biracial. Okay, there's special needs right there. They're being raised by a white guy. Okay. 2 are Hispanic. 2 are a sibling group at age 4. That's special needs. They're not an infant. 2 were adopted at age 3 and age 2. Now that's special needs. So you see what I'm saying? The special needs umbrella is really broad.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily mean severe complications.
Okay. So if you're, in other words, if you're willing to be kind of Catholic in your openness to children, that is okay, well, who are the children that you've got? This is not a difficult thing to do.
Well, there's another secret I discovered, and I want to share this with anybody pondering this. I didn't realize it till about the 3rd kid because the agencies didn't tell me. If you adopt in December, you still get the tax deduction for the whole year. Yeah. They pay for themselves that first year, then you start to fall behind because they eat more. But, you cut back on the food a little bit, you can break even September, October, somewhere in there.
So the 2 things that you would say are be open to any child, and don't forget late in the year adoptions can really pay off.
Oh, yeah.
Those are the 2.
Yeah.
The wisdom of Dr. Ray, ladies and gentlemen, the wisdom of Dr. Ray.
People said, how'd you get 10? How did you get 10? I know folks who are struggling to get 1 or 2. As I said, our first 2 children were white. That just happened through certain private types of agencies that we managed to adopt. However, after that, our 3rd child was biracial. Our 4th child was biracial. Our 5th and 6th children were Hispanic 4-year-olds from foster care. Our 7th child was black. Our 8th child was black. Our 9th child was black. And then, this is interesting, we thought we were done at 9. But there was a young girl who had gotten pregnant at age 13. And she wanted to place her baby with a family that she knew. Now, we were not expecting a 10th kid, Cy. We thought we were done at 9. So I guess you could say our daughter Elizabeth was, hesitate to say this, an unplanned adoption. We weren't practicing safe phone.
If you had just not taken the call, the child's life would have gone very differently.
That's exactly right.
God is good, isn't he? So you don't, I have to say, there's a certain lack of sentimentality about all of this in you, that it doesn't come across like this is the most beautiful thing that has ever happened. But
it's kind of like eating potato chips. You always think you can eat one more until you get sick.
Yeah, right. Oh. So, it sounds like lunch today, huh, Edgar? By the way, 888-318. I did it again. I'm starting to chat with Dr. Ray, and I didn't give out the phone number, 888-318-7884. As a matter of fact, I forgot all about my job, 888-318-7884. We're talking adoption. Maybe you have this idea in your head about adoption, and you'd like to talk with someone who can give you some of those wonderful, adopt at the end of the year type pointers that you're not going to get from an amateur. You got to talk to a pro for that stuff. 888-318-7884. We'll take a very quick break. We'll be right back with more with Dr. Ray Guarendi right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Miss a show? Make sure to catch up by downloading the podcast, available online at Catholic.com.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
I am a very happy, grateful revert to the faith. About 12 years ago, I was surfing the channels and I found EWTN. I didn't even know it existed, and I heard Mother and remembered that years ago I had told a Catholic nun at a church in Boston that I was visiting that I missed the faith, and she said, "You will come back." And when I was listening to Mother Angelica, I remembered that.
EWTN, communicating the faith.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. Dr. Ray Guarendi is our guest. So many helpful books on parenting and marriage and Jesus. Some beautiful books on Jesus from Dr. Ray Guarendi and other things. But this one on adoption. Adoption, should you? Could you? And then what? Straight answers from a psychologist and adoptive father of 10. It's out now. You can get it's from Sophia Institute Press, and Sophia Institute makes beautiful, beautiful books. So get this one and give it a read, or maybe just leave it on the coffee table. Then everybody who comes into your house will have a new idea will pop into their head, one that might change a child's life, save a child's life. 888-318-7884 is the number if you have questions about adoption. We talked a little bit about the fears around adoption. What about the thing, what is the answer to the person who is genuinely anxious that I won't bond with this child? I'm not going to have that, I'm not going to have that connection.
Well, first of all, unless they're a hard-hearted soul, they're mostly wrong.
Okay.
Adoptive parents will tell you, I couldn't imagine loving this child more than I do.
Right.
When my 14-year-old son came up to me once and he said, "Hey, Dad, would you," and he was struggling, Si, "would you love me more like," and I said, "Andrew, you mean if you were born to me and Mom?" Yeah, that's it, Dad. I said, "Andrew, who do I love more than anybody in the world?" And he said, "Mom." Now, I'm glad he got that right, because she was standing right there,
He's a smart kid.
Yeah. I said, "Am I related to Mom?" He said, "No." And that was it. I mean, that satisfied him. Which leads us to this question. Okay, you asked a bonding question. If an adoptive kid, because he's been drug or alcohol exposed, is going to be harder to raise, and that does happen. Come on, Si. I got several that were heavily drug and alcohol exposed in the womb, and they've had their turbulence growing up. There's no question about that. I got that. My bond with those kids is because I'm their daddy. Not necessarily because this is going to be easy all the time, or because I'm going to feel warm all the time, or because I'm not going to get frustrated. It's because I'm their daddy. That's the way it is. I'm in that position. So that's one. Based upon the media, watching movies, listening to television shows, Cy, what would you think would be the percentage of adopted kids who seek out birth parents when they're old enough?
93.
Okay. You only missed it by 83%.
Well, I'm not good with numbers.
It's 10%.
I see. Yeah.
Most adopted kids, this is mom and dad. This is what they know. This is who they know. This is their family. My one son said to me one time, he goes, I can't even imagine another family. He said, this is my family. This is all I've known. It'd be kind of like you or me saying, well, we got a wife out there in Montana, but we never met her. We don't know who she is, and she probably has some kids, and that's kind of a little bit of a parallel. 3 of my kids did seek out birth parents. 2 of them, it was not a good experience. Okay, their birth mom lost them early on because of drug and alcohol use, and she still hadn't gotten her life together. So that reunion abruptly closed. One other has contact with her birth mom now, but she still views me and Randy as mom and dad. I mean, that's who we are. This is the lady who gave her birth, and she loves her for it, and gave her a mom and dad, but we're mom and dad.
And so you've never had children like that might say to you, "You're not my real dad," that kind of thing.
They might try it. I don't think they'd get very far. I had a social worker say to me once, my black son Peter, who is now 24, what if he says to you, this is back when he was 8 or 9 or 10, "You're not my dad. You're not even my race. I don't have to listen to you." And I said, You mean before I kill him or after I kill him? Because the bottom line is, we'll discuss anything. We're not going to start the discussion out by saying, "I'm not your dad." That's not going to happen.
Right.
Now, what else you want to talk about, Petey? We go from there. And that's the truth for me. I've always viewed it that way. And the kids knew it. I said, look, I couldn't love you more than I do. It's not possible. I can't imagine it. Okay? So what other color your skin is, I don't care. One of my black sons said to me, Dad, you don't look like me. And I said, James, who do I look more like? You or your white sister? He goes, well, you look more like me. I go, that's right. You want to go by looks, I don't look like her at all.
888-318-7884, the number. We're talking about adoption. Dr. Ray has a new book out from Sophia Institute Press, Adoption. Should you? Could you? And then what? Straight answers from a psychologist and adoptive father of 10. If you want to talk with Dr. Ray about that, 888-318-7884. Shall we go to phones, Dr. Ray?
Sure.
All right, let's go to Elizabeth in Arizona, watching on YouTube. Elizabeth, thanks very much for getting us started off with our calls for Dr. Ray this hour. Go ahead with your question.
Hello, thank you for taking my call.
Happy to, Elizabeth.
My question is, thank you. I have a 2-year-old, and I'm already finding myself overwhelmed by motherhood, and I've always wanted to adopt for as long as I can remember. And my question is, how do I know when I'm ready for that? Because I don't feel ready for anything right now.
Well, Elizabeth, you're watching on YouTube?
Yes.
I have one question for you. Does my hair look okay? How's my hair look all right?
It's
Okay.
poofy, and there's a glowing light there.
Yeah, I know it is right behind me. I had that put there. It's my halo effect. I had that. I told Catholic Answers I wanted that.
They worked on that for a while before the show.
Yeah.
Did you say goofy or poofy, Elizabeth? I just need to clarify.
Hey, easy.
I'm sorry, I wasn't sure what she said.
Poofy.
Oh, okay, good.
Elizabeth, my daughter's name is Elizabeth. We call her Elizabeth. Anyway, okay, so given all that, my dear, I hear from parents a whole lot what you just said. I'm being overwhelmed by motherhood with 1. I can't imagine another 2 or 3. It would kill me. The first thing I would say to you is this. When I hear this from a parent, 90% of the time, when it is a loving, good parent, which I got to believe you are, it is discipline related. It is this child won't cooperate. I'm trying to be good about this. We're trying to all get along. Bedtime's a problem. Eating's a problem. They won't sit on the steps. If I tell them to sit on the steps, I'm going crazy because I can't control them. If we go to church, it's nuts. We have to leave, and on and on and on and on. Once you get better discipline control, and the way you do that is you buy my books because I'll tell you how to do that. But once you have that, I'll give you a small example. At one point, we had 10 kids under 12, and my wife homeschooled. I didn't go home. When you have 10 kids under 12, I just UPS'd her things. I said, how's things going, honey? I'd like to come home, but I can't. I'm writing a parenting book. Okay, so given that, she had what she called pull the plug. When things got crazy, she said, okay, everybody, get a seat, grab a book, sit down. And they had to, Elizabeth, or there would be significant consequences. Now, with your little 2-year-old, I would suggest, for example, if you have a playpen or something like that, you tell her to sit on the steps when she misbehaves, you just pick her up and put her in a playpen. That's it. If it's a pack and play or whatever it is, that's it. It's over. She's no longer going to be able to defy you or argue with you or give you trouble. And here's the other thing. My wife said this. She said, I think I'm a better mother of 10 than I was of 3. And what she meant by that was she learned how to take better control. She got much stronger in her discipline. She learned what to let go and what to make a move on. She just got better at the whole parenting thing. And much of it was she kept me out of the way. So that was a factor too. But I always tell parents, do not let your desire to adopt be torpedoed by the fact that you think, I think I'm an inept mother as it is. I wouldn't want to do this to another child. Don't do that, because you can always get much better at this. Always. It isn't the child that's making this happen. Most of the time, it's us parents not taking charge. So there you go.
Elizabeth?
Well, I appreciate that perspective. That's great. Could I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
What if I personally find my 2-year-old to be pretty easy? If I ask her not to do something, she just doesn't do it. It's kind of weird. So I'm wondering if maybe the problem is more myself. Like maybe if I'm struggling like with some anxiety or maybe even some depression, and like how would that factor into an adoption decision?
Well, if you are, you've got to decide what you're going to do about your anxiety and depression. Much of the time, fortunately, when people are anxious or depressed, the two most common psychological symptoms, if they get a good cognitive behavioral therapist, they can tone down a lot of this. They truly can. So much of what this anxiety and depression is coming from, you have to explore it. What are you thinking like? How are you interpreting things? What's your view of life? What's your view of religion? How are you getting along with your mother-in-law? All these things that are entering into this anxiety or this moodiness, you can explore, and you can probably do a whole lot about.
All right. Elizabeth?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I sometimes wonder if that really isn't just the thing. It feels like there's something more wrong with me than my child, because she's such, like I said, I find her to be an easy child. She's very delightful.
Well, if there's more wrong with you than that, you got to explore it. You got to figure out what it is, because in fact, you probably shouldn't feel that anxious or depressed, and you're probably doing a lot of thinking that's pulling you down.
Elizabeth, thank you very, very much. Appreciate that call. We're talking about adoption. If you been thinking about it, maybe you got the pull in that direction and you want to talk to someone who has done it 10 times, you are welcome to call 888-318-7884. Anastasio in Belmont, Texas, listening on the Catholic Answers app is next. Anastasio, go ahead with your question for Dr. Ray.
Oh, hi, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Okay, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Dr. Ray for giving those kids a chance of having a family. And
the parole officer says some of the nicest kids he has.
Yeah. Then I guess my question is, me and my wife are thinking of adopting. So we're just at the beginning, and we don't know where to start.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering. So I'm just wondering if you have any advice.
Sure. Every state has multiple agencies. They have private agencies, they have public agencies. There is a book in the library called the Adoption Resource Handbook. I'll get this in quick before the music.
Oh, you want to do it quick? Because I can come back.
I'll do it quick.
Okay.
Before, you can look up every state and they'll tell you what agencies are in that state, what they cost, what they prefer, what they specialize in.
The name of the book again?
Adoption. Should you, could you, and then what?
Thanks for the call. I got to go. We'll be right back.
Here's a question. Is it really possible to be friends with someone who died 2,000 years ago? Maybe the problem is that we've grown way too comfortable with the story of Jesus. Nice man, right? Taught us to love one another, said not to judge people. We celebrate his birthday every year. It's time to put away this small, safe version of Jesus, says Cy Kellett. Nobody that bland could have transformed the world. In A Teacher of Strange Things, Cy presents Jesus Christ undiluted by sentiment, with all his radical words and deeds uncensored. Do you know someone, your son or daughter perhaps, or maybe your mom or dad, who needs the friendship of Jesus Christ? Do you? Order your copy of A Teacher of Strange Things by visiting shop.catholic.com today or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you. Have you enrolled in the Catholic Answers School of Apologetics? Let me ask you a more important question. Do you believe as a Catholic that you have an obligation to share the Catholic faith? In fact, the Church has answered this question, and the answer is that all confirmed Catholics are obliged to share the faith. It's actually in canon law. Catholic Answers is here to help you fulfill that obligation. Our School of Apologetics courses will equip you to help all the people you come in contact with understand what the Church teaches and why. A great place to start is with all the Catholics in your life. Learn the art of apologetics from the best of the best and start sharing the gospel today. Visit schoolofapologetics.com. That's schoolofapologetics.com.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Monday on More to Life, Imposter Syndrome.
Do you feel like you're not up to the challenges in your life? We'll help you discover your strengths.
That's Monday on More to Life. Now back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Hey, you can listen to Catholic Answers Live, all kinds of Catholic Answers material, as a matter of fact, on what is now the world's #1 Catholic app, Hallow, the Hallow app. They've got, Father Mike Schmitz and Dr. Scott Hahn and a whole bunch of other wonderful folks on there. And now they've got our apologists. And if you don't know about the Hallow app, check it out and find all that Catholic Answers stuff there, too. If you want to just see what Catholic Answers has got available on the Hallow app, go to hallow.com/Catholic Answers, hallow.com/Catholic Answers, and you'll see all that good stuff. And we're very grateful. I mean, Hallow is a lot of prayer, meditations, that kind of thing. So we're really happy to get to partner with them and put some of this apologetics work that we do there as well. Hallow, yeah.
Hallow be its name.
Hallow, yes. Hallow. Good Lord, help me. It's 1.5 hour left. Lord,
that's all you got to do, buddy. Hang in there.
Just half hour that I can be in traffic. Dr. A, right before we went to the break, the gentleman from Texas that called, you suggested a book to him, and I meant that book. It was, you said a resource that I wanted to repeat.
Oh, so you wanted me to plug somebody else's book?
Yes, that's exactly it.
I think I got it now.
Yeah. Right. Why do I sometimes feel like you put things in the worst possible construction you can when I'm on with you?
Hey, I had 10 children. I have no brain cells left. None. I used to be a really smart guy. I had one mother say to me once, before I had children, I was a pretty nice person. Now I'm not pretty or nice.
Yep. It happens to all of us.
The book was the Adoption Resource Handbook. It's a big, thick thing. It lists by state the agencies that are public, that are private. And private are more expensive, and public agencies, usually you don't pay any money at all to go through them. It lists what they specialize in, special needs kids or cross-race kids, what their fees probably are, average waiting time. But you don't even really need that book anymore, Anastasio. You can go straight to the internet. Let's say you go in and you live in Iowa. So you type in adoption, 6-year-old female. Big list is going to come up.
Really?
Of 6-year-old females awaiting adoption in foster care. There's a bazillion of them. Tell you where they are, the agency that has custody of them. Sure. Oh my gosh, yeah. A lot of friends of mine have adopted sibling groups. A 2, 3, 5-year-old, or a 5, 6, 9-year-old, something like that. Now, you adopt older kids, it's a little tougher. They got a history. They've already got their personalities there. You don't have that 1-year infant cuddling period where you get all warm and gushy. But still, even with the bumps, you're a parent. I tell parents, if you're going to adopt an older kid, or a kid who's been drug and alcohol exposed in the womb, or a kid who's been neglected the first year of life, or a kid from overseas who's in an institution for 1.5 years or 2 years or 2.5 years and has had very little consistent adult contact. There's a pretty good chance you're going to have some bumpy turbulence in raising this child. As long as you're braced for that, and you don't look at it as a sign of your failure. I tell people, I got some kids who are going to serve at church. I got some probably going to serve time. You know what I mean? I'm just going with the numbers game here.
All right, Anastasio, I hope that's helpful to you. 888-318-7884, Terre Haute, Indiana. Next, Derek in Terre Haute, watching on YouTube. You're very welcome here, Derek. Go ahead with your question for Dr. Ray.
Yes, Dr. Ray, I'd like to know what would be the oldest age of the couple or individual that's adopting a child could be.
Oh, for the couple.
Aha, yeah. In the old days, Derek, it was, you start pushing 40, you're not going to be looked at. It's not that way anymore. My oldest, I was at 47 when we adopted our last daughter. I have in-laws who what was John? He was 50-something when he adopted. So age isn't the factor it used to be. However, here's a couple of things to consider. A lot of times when the birth moms have a say in who they're going to choose for adoptive parents, because they usually select from a group of adoptive possibilities. They tend to lean toward younger because, one, they want their kid maybe to be the first one in the family, or they themselves are 17 years of age, so that they think anybody 30 years of age is getting pretty old, getting pretty far up there. My brother and sister-in-law both adopted, and the reason they got their son was that the young mother said, "I really want him to be with a middle-aged couple." And they were 30 and 27. And that's what she thought was a middle-aged couple.
Oh, my Lord. Wow. I feel so much worse about myself right now.
Well, the other thing, too, Derek, is that, if you adopt older, let's say you adopt a 9-year-old. Well, now age isn't as big a factor. You're not adopting an infant. You could be 50 years old, and you're adopting a 9-year-old, so in effect, that would have been when you were 41 when this child was born. It's not that big a deal, okay? It all kind of depends upon what you're looking for. A harder to place kid, the age range goes up because there's just not as many parents to adopt that child. Our last son, my wife was praying at Sancta Clara Monastery here in Canton, Ohio. That was Mother Angelica's, that's where she was a prioress. My wife was not yet Catholic. And she came in and she was praying and she said, Lord, if you want us to have a child, you're going to have to drop it in our lap because we are done. At that time, we had 6 kids. Next day, we got a call from an attorney. She says, I have a little baby boy, African American, born 2 months premature, 1 month intensive care. He's in the neonatal unit right now. I have no placement for him. Now, the timing seemed pretty prudential. The day after she prayed. So we adopted little Petey because she specialized in adoption as an attorney, but she didn't have any place to put this little guy. So he's now 24 and he's probably most like me of any of our kids, which is a handicap for him, but
poor guy.
Yeah,
but I'm sure he has a lot of other strengths. Derek, is that helpful to you?
Yes, but could I ask one more question?
Yes, please.
What would be the oldest age of a child that you should adopt?
Well, that depends how prepared you are to ride that roller coaster. You adopt a 15-year-old. 15-year-olds are out there and they need homes, and they are by far the hardest kids to place. But if you say to yourself, I'm going to give this 15-year-old a home as best I can for as long as I can, and you're able and ready to do that, and you're not necessarily looking at super success, whatever comes, go for it. I think that's tremendous. If my wife and I were not as old as we were, we probably would ponder that whole idea, but well, she's getting up there. I'm not, but she's getting up there. And she's probably as old as Rose Sweet as far as that is. I don't know.
That seems like an exaggeration. Is anyone as old as Rose Sweet?
Probably not. But I'll tell you, my friend, it all comes down to there is no age at which you say this child is unadoptable. What you say is, am I prepared? Do I have the stamina and the commitment to adopt this child who may come with some baggage and some behavior problems and some emotional problems? You're ready to handle that. God bless you. The Lord needs people like you.
Derek, I'm going to leave it there because I have to take our next break, but thank you very, very much for that. I know that Rose, driving home now, she can hear us on 1450 AM, so I know she heard all that. I'll be hearing about this later when I'm in my car on the way home. So thanks for that, Dr. Ray.
Sure. I got your back, Si.
Right, we'll be right back. Oh, you can call if you, we can still get you on if you got a question about adoption. If it's a question about your capacity for adoption, a more systemic question about how to go about it, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. If you're one of those people who's open to the Lord's command to care for the widows and orphans, this hour is for you. 888-318-7884.
There's only one Catholic Answers Live.
We have a big problem. Our culture is dying, and souls are in danger of being lost. The answer is conversion to Jesus Christ in His church. St. Paul Street Evangelization is a Catholic organization, and we have hundreds of teams spreading the good news throughout the country. But we need your help. The harvest is great, but the laborers are few. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
What have you always wanted to know about the Vatican? Well, I'm your Vatican insider, and I answer that question when I bring you the news about the Pope, Vatican City, and much more. I answer your wonderful questions about the Church. I share insights and stories told by my amazing guests from a broad spectrum of church ministries.
Vatican Insider with Joan Lewis, Saturday night, 9 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. Dr. Ray Guarendi has a brand new book, Adoption. Should you? Could you? And then what? Straight answers from a psychologist and adoptive father of 10. It's available now from Sophia Institute Press. Maybe you know someone who you believe has the capacity for adoption and the interest, and you'd like to give them the book. Do that. Maybe this is the book for you. You can get it from Sophia Institute Press anywhere where good Catholic books are sold, probably in some places where bad Catholic books are sold. 888-318-7884. Well, I'm sure there's no stores that have all bad Catholic books.
Well, I got to tell you, Si, the book, I don't know if you realize this.
Well,
the book is $1 million seller. There's $1 million in my cellar.
Oh, that's the author. Yes. Yeah. I know that one. Oh, I'm glad we printed all of these.
Yeah,
Where should we put them? Yeah. We've got a few of those here at Catholic Answers. Again, 888-318-7884, the number. You're welcome to call with your questions for Dr. Ray about adoption. 888-318-7884. You mentioned a couple times overseas adoption. Is that, well, first of all, my sense is that's the one that's very, very expensive. And is there a reason to do that, or should you stay here and adopt some of the kids here?
Some parents are afraid that the adoption will be disrupted. By that, Si, I mean they've read in the paper, they've seen these high-profile cases where after 2 years in the adoptive parent's home, the child returns to the biological parents who have fought for custody.
Oh.
That is a rare event. Typically what happens is it was disputed from the very beginning. And the adoptive parents said, well, okay, because we're going to battle this. And if they lost the case, it took a year or two for this to go. Well, that's the first thing. So if somebody goes overseas, there's a far less chance that in their mind, anything like that's going to happen.
I see. Yeah.
Thirdly, they may figure they can get a child closer to their race. You know, you go overseas, say, for example, to a former communist country, even though that source is drying up. But if you do, well, those kids are Caucasian. So they figure, well, I won't have to deal with potential social, racial issues. That's a factor. Sometimes they think it's quicker that way, depending upon the country, depending upon what kind of conditions they place upon you. Some countries say you got to go live there for a while. Others say, no, we have children and they're placed for adoption. Some countries, believe it or not, I won't mention any names, they've closed their adoption because they are afraid that these rich Americans will come and, quote unquote, buy their children and misuse them as servants or third-class citizens, and they can't understand what would motivate these rich people to come and want our children.
I see. Yeah. Again, 888-318-7884, the number. I had a follow-up for that, and I can't remember, but I'll think of it while Nikki's talking with you. Nikki in Victoria, Texas, listening to EWTN, Channel 130, Sirius XM satellite radio. Nikki, go ahead with your question for Dr. Ray.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'll make it short and sweet, and you guys might have already addressed it. I got onto the show a little bit late, but I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are on a single person, never been married, never had kids, 45 years old, kind of discerning the option of adopting, what the probability of someone like me would be to be able to adopt, and kind of where to get started on that.
Nikki, that's happening more and more. There are many more single parents being able to adopt simply because there are children available. And if those children cannot be placed in a two-parent home, then a permanent option with one parent is better than perhaps multiple foster placements. If the foster parents retire or one dies or anything like that. So Nikki, that's very possible. Same thing. You have to look at the agencies and see if they will be open to a single parent adoption. It really depends upon your state. You do a search, start searching on the web and see exactly who is there, who's available. I personally know several single parents who have adopted. I know one fella who adopted a whole bunch of kids from Brazil These were street kids, and he was a single dad. And he went and got these kids because they were going to live on the streets if nobody adopted them. So he adopted them. By the way, Nikki, I just made arrangements to go to Victoria, Texas, in March for a speaking engagement. So if you go to my website,
You're kidding.
Yeah, I know, sweetheart. drray.com. You go there. I should have the details up where I'm going to be. I forget the name of the parish, but yeah, it's Victoria. It's come to see you guys.
I go to Holy Family Catholic Church. I'll have to check that out, and I definitely will come and see it. That's great.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you so much for the call, Nikki. I really, really appreciate that. We're talking adoption with Dr. Ray Guarendi, 888-318-7884. Is it something that you feel open to or could feel open to? Call and ask your question, 888-318-7884. I believe one state in the United States has more people than any other asking about adoption, and it's Texas, because every call today is from Texas. I don't know. Are there no? What's going on down there in Texas?
Either that or you got some big affiliates down there.
Well, yeah, Guadalupe Radio, they cover a lot of ground. Well, actually, Tamra in Amarillo, Texas, is listening on Grace Radio. Tamra, we're very glad to have you. Go ahead with your question for Dr. Ray Guarendi.
Hello. I do have a question, but first I just wanted to tell him, the guy that's talking, that it's amazing the way that he is speaking about his children, and I wish there was more people like him that would be like that. I want to start like a resource place because a lot of kids I know are getting taken by CPS, and so I don't really know if they go to good homes or not. And how would I go about starting a resource?
What you do, Tamara, is you contact your local, and they vary by name depending upon, I think, either the state or the county. I think here in Ohio, it's Job and Family Services. It used to be Children's Services Board. They vary by name, and they will tell you what children are in foster care, what are open for adoption. If you would like to be a foster parent, I always call it lease with option to buy. If you would be a foster parent, and ultimately, that's probably the guaranteedest, if you want to use that word, way to adopt. Because ultimately, some of those foster kids are going to need adopted homes. They're not going to go back to a birth parent. So that's where you check. You see what they have. Now, if you say, I want to start my own agency, I don't know much about the legalities of that or how to go about doing that. But check with your local county agencies, see what children they have. Most of them in the big counties, they got hundreds and hundreds of kids awaiting adoption.
Okay, Tamara?
Yeah, well, really, I started crying when I heard that Dr. Ray, is that his name?
Yes, Dr. Ray.
Tamara, I'm not that bad, am I?
Huh?
I'm not that bad, am I? You started crying?
No. You have a good heart, and I love the way that you talk about your children.
Well, that's because they're not here,
It is. It's awesome. You're really blunt about how you talk, and I don't know. It moved my heart.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. That's my Aunt Tamara. She calls in all the time.
Tamara, you are all right. Thanks very, very much. And for putting up with Dr. Ray. Who else says lease with the option to buy? Who talks like that?
Rent to own. Well, hey, you know what happened with us with one of our kids?
Yeah.
We were going through a local agency, Cuyahoga County. Little boys, 3 years old, hadn't been placed yet. Halfway through the process, the social worker says, well, he has a sister. And I said, what's this, the Candlelight Adoption Club? Get one, get the second one for half price? I mean, what is this? So we adopted his sister, too.
I can't believe that social workers allow you to adopt children when you say these things, because social workers are famously not the most hilarious people in the world, all right?
Some of the adoption workers, they've been through the wheel. They know. They're some of the more real people I deal with.
I say that with all the love in the world, but social workers, they can be kind of literal in the way. What do you mean by that, Dr. Ray? What do you mean by that?
I had a social worker challenge me on the radio.
Oh, really?
That I should not adopt black children because she said I couldn't keep their culture alive. And I said, what culture? I said, most of the African Americans I associate with go to my church. We share all kinds of activities. We go to sporting events together. Our kids go to school together. What is quote unquote culture that you're talking about? And then I really shook her up. I said, well, his culture is my culture now because I love that boy. And that boy's my son.
Yeah.
And because he has a little bit more pigment in his skin than I do, that's it. I can't fathom that. That is not a reason to say I should not be able to adopt that little guy.
No, I do not. How can you believe the gospel of Jesus Christ and think a child it's got to be? You're a white person. You can't have that black child. I mean, it's completely opposite of what the Lord Himself taught us.
And that ruled for a long time. Only the last 20 years or so has that been changed. But prior to that, there was a lot of roadblocks to white couples adopting out of their race.
Jonathan in Washington, listening on Sacred Heart Radio app. We're glad to have you. Jonathan, go ahead with your question for Dr. Ray.
Yeah, I'll try to keep it quick, but I've been wondering about a certain situation, how it would work out. If, say, you knew a girl, try to keep it short. Say you knew a woman who's in a crisis pregnancy situation, whether it's just a woman you happen to meet somehow, or even a woman outside of an abortion clinic who's coming in for an appointment who challenges you and says something like, well, would you be willing to adopt a child? Not thinking you'd answer yes. And you have an answer yes and they accept. How would this kind of an adoption work? Would you have to go through an adoption agency as normal?
Mm-hmm.
No.
I'm trying to figure out the logistics of it.
You get an attorney. You get an attorney, preferably one who specializes in adoption. And we did that through 3 or 4 attorneys. And they navigate the whole process. They say, okay, this is what happens during the pregnancy. This is what happens afterwards. This is the care that you agree with. Now, there's a little danger there because we had one adoption where we agreed to cover all the pregnancy expenses, and then when the baby was born, she changed her mind. Okay, that can happen. That's a risk. However, what you're talking about, Jonathan, is what they call an open adoption. Now, open adoptions right now are the preference for most adoption personnel. However, as a psychologist, I see open adoptions as fraught with complications. And depending upon the degree of openness, some of them say, well, I want to be involved in the child's life. I want to be the birth mother. You can be the adoptive mother. That's wide open. That really depends upon the psychological well-being of the grown-ups. We have an open adoption. She wanted pictures. She wanted pictures at every birthday. That was the degree of the openness. Okay. At one point, she came to us and she said, I would like to have this child who was 9 meet his half-siblings. And we said no. No, that would confuse her. That would confuse our other children. When she is old enough, then we will help her if she wishes to pursue that. And she did. She did wish to pursue it. Okay. So, yeah, the degree of openness has to be agreed upon by both the birth parents, or parent, usually the mom, and the adopted parents. You don't have to take any degree of openness. You can say this is what we're comfortable with and this is what we'll do.
Okay, Jonathan?
Okay. It's extremely helpful. I don't know. I just want to help. And I feel weirdly drawn to the adoption issue, so I just wanted to figure out how that worked. Yeah, that's extremely helpful. Thank you.
Okay, buddy.
Thank you, Jonathan. And I have to apologize to other callers. That's going to wrap it up for our ability to take calls today. Dr. Ray Guarendi has been our guest, and a pretty good one. I'm going to give that at least a
6. A 6 on a 1 to 400.
That's your grade of yourself. The brand new book from Sophia Institute Press. You can get it from Sophia Institute Press. Adoption. Should you? Could you? And then what? Straight answers from a psychologist and adoptive father of 10. That's by our guest, Dr. Ray Guarendi. Get it. Share it. Yes.
If you want a signed copy, just go to my website, drray.com. I have signed copies there.
drray.com. Get a signed copy.
Yeah.
Dr. Ray, thank you very much for all of it. Thank you so much.
Scott.
I agree with Tamara and everything she said, by the way. I wish I had said all that stuff. See ya next time, God
Thanks,
willing,
buddy.
right here,
See ya.
Catholic Answers Live.